Sisters Alive is a video of 6 African American females talking about living with HIV, AIDS. These 6 females have known different lengths of time that they were HIV positive. They talk about what they felt like when they were diagnosed, how they felt when they were given their diagnosis of being HIV positive. The main message in this video is them telling other females about prevention and the awareness of HIV, as well as telling others how they are living with the virus. These women named this video Sisters Alive, and it really speaks to who they are. They are sisters who are living, and they're doing all different things in life. They're working. They're living life to the fullest. The message here, I believe, is that HIV is not who they are, but it is a disease that they all have, and they can live with it. And that's what this video is about.
When I was diagnosed, I felt like my whole world had come to an end, and that my life, as I had known it, was going to end or change dramatically. I had no information, so immediately I just felt like everything was over. My life was over.
My story, in terms of being infected, is really not unique to heterosexual females. I was a single mom, raising 3 daughters. I've been divorced a couple of times. I lived in an environment of social activity. I never did drugs. I had friends. I dated fellas. My environment was one where people were college educated and the kind of upper echelon of our society, and so I never had an inkling about this disease. Never crossed my mind. I mean, I thought that the fellas I dated were clean-cut guys, drove nice cars, had nice educations, had nice jobs, spoke well, looked good, and so I felt like, you know, I really had no reason to think about those things, and so those things weren't an issue. But having this disease has made me realize that as African American women, because of our culture and how we perceive relationships with men, that we need to learn to protect ourselves, that we need to learn not to leave that part of our lives to other people.
The whole issue of disclosing or disclosure was something that I was very much afraid of for 9.5 years. You know, I am just beginning to feel comfortable talking about the disease. I chose to keep it a secret. I did talk to, as I said before, people in my support group, people who were in my inner circle, my family members, of course, but to openly disclose, I was very uncomfortable with that because of the shame and the guilt that I felt, and because of the stigma that is associated with the disease and has been for years. So it's something that I had to come to grips with, because it was my own shame and guilt and fear of how I would be perceived by other people. So once I came to the understanding that I was okay and I was very comfortable with me, then I could take the risk to disclose. The other thing was that I really just got tired of hiding, because that with itself was bringing on stress.
I didn't want to tell anybody, but once I accepted that I have HIV and that's something I have and that's not who I am, I was able to tell anybody. You know, the hardest person I had to tell was my family members. And when I made the decision to tell them, it was like, the fear wasn't because I was HIV positive, it was the fear that I didn't know how it was going to affect them, knowing that I was HIV positive. And I was still trying to protect people.
I'm studying for ministry to be a minister, and I work with the youth as well. And wanting to be able to educate the church with HIV and AIDS, but letting them know that it's there and not be afraid of those of us that are in the church that is HIV positive. So being able to have a church family that allowed me to study as a minister was wonderful for me. And to have the youth to be able to know my diagnosis and not run away.
Denise was one of the 6 women who is in this video. She agreed to do the video. In fact, she asked to be a part of this video while she was in a hospice center. 2 years prior to this video, Denise was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. We're not sure if the cancer was related at any way to her HIV status, but we do know that she was a soldier. She was a winner. She had known for 12 years that she was HIV positive, and it never stopped her from living life to its fullest.
Get a support group. A support group is very helpful because they can relate to all your symptoms, to emotional things that you might go through. Any kind of support that you might need to being involved in a treatment, I would say go for it. Do any and everything you can in light and face of what's happening with your body. Keep up with it, and it'll keep up with you because your body will not lie to you. And it's really about getting involved with other women and reaching out to other women. And the more you learn, the more somebody else learns. And then you can pass it around. Because it's imperative and it's important that the information get around, because most women just duck out and shy back and, you know, go through that same old tendency to not want to tell, but you got to tell, because that's where you're going to get your hope. And it's a good thing, because then you get all kind of support.
Denise went home to be with the Lord one day after her interview.
One thing that I'd like to say is coming to a level of acceptance of having HIV is a process, and that my whole first year to 18 months I spent preparing for my death. I think that for a lot of African American women or persons in general that are infected with the HIV virus, the medication syndrome is a real big piece of the puzzle. And I just like to encourage people not to give up. I had to try many different medication regimens before I found one that worked for me. And it doesn't have to work for me only with improving my counts. It has to fit into my social schedule. I am not a person that really likes taking medicine. So to take an enormous amount of pills at one time did not work well for me. I cannot remember. I don't eat breakfast. So I was fortunate enough to have doctors that were willing to work with me to find a medication regimen that fit into my lifestyle. And within the last year, I have accomplished that. And it has made a world of difference in my T-cell and viral load counts. So I just like to encourage African American women to talk about their feelings of the effects of the medications on them so that they can get the help that they need.
My message to African American women, and any women, would be to protect themselves. I would beg them to protect themselves. In this day and age, we need to be responsible for our own health, and we are responsible for the choices that we make. And my message would be to always keep in mind that there are consequences to every choice that we make. So you always need to protect yourself. I don't care what the situation is, what your significant other, what the other person is saying. We need to be responsible and take that responsibility for our own health.
If you're going to have sex, always use precautions, because that person may not know that they're infected. And you're taking a chance. When you have unprotected sex, you're actually putting your life in that person's hands. I would tell them to get tested, just to know, because the sooner you know, the better.
Use safe sex. You got to. We're not saying don't have none, because you can have some. Right. But you got to use protected sex. If you're using drugs, you got to use clean needles, but God forbid that you don't use drugs. Because it's not going to matter where it comes from when you have it. You just going to have it. So that part of it will be history and not even a mystery, because it won't make a difference where it's coming from.
Take charge of their own life and know that they can, that they are responsible for themselves. Mostly women that are married, because they think because they're married and they only sleep with their husband, they don't supposed to practice safe sex. I would encourage them to learn how to use a condom themselves. They got female condoms that they could put on.
The message that I would like to give to African American women that are infected with the HIV virus is that empowerment comes through belief in God and ongoing education, because the belief in God gave renewed or restored my desire to live. It let me see that HIV, having the HIV virus, was a livable situation.
Message to women who are living with the virus would be that there is life after an HIV diagnosis. I've been living with the virus for about 9.5 years, and I have learned after you get through the panic, that initial panic, and once you reach a point where you have accepted the disease, you begin to learn that you can live with the disease. My message would be to learn as much as you can about the disease so that you can participate in your healthcare decisions. That's been very important to me. It gives you a sense of power and you don't feel so helpless and out of control. It also helps you to understand what it is you need to do for you to take care of yourself. My message would be that you can live with it. You need to be aware of the things that are detrimental to you, such as stress and negative energies, being around other people who are sick, and just kind of taking precautions to assure that you don't put yourself at more risk.
See a doctor right away. Find out exactly where they at with it, how much is in their body, and no matter what they do, is to practice safer sex.
That there is life after an HIV diagnosis, and you can live a healthy, happy, and successful life, and the choice is really up to us. Another thing I would stress is that attitude is real important. It's very important because it has an effect on your body, and that took me a while to learn too. If I'm depressed, if I'm angry, if I'm experiencing any of those kinds of negative emotions, my body reacts. So I have learned not to do that, and I've learned what I need to do not to do that, like prayer, meditation.
What I would say to women that are living with HIV is to get information, get them a doctor that specializes, or at least a doctor that is knowledgeable about HIV. If they're more comfortable with staying with their own physician, just make sure that that doctor can either refer you to a specialist or is very knowledgeable. I wouldn't waste time not taking medications if it's offered to me, and I would tell them to just educate themselves.
I would suggest that involvement is a key to healing. I have found that in being involved in this fight, that I have healed, that I have gained confidence and respect, not only for myself, but from the community, that the quality of my life has improved tenfold because I feel like I'm a part of the community, of the world, that I have a mission and a ministry. My faith in God and my devotion to my faith has shown me that this is a ministry for me. And we may never find a cure for HIV, but I've already been healed.